Hello everyone, it's Lel, and I think I'm looking a little different today. Anyways, this video is a video about merch listings and a possible debut window for Cure Nyammy and Cure Lillian in Wonderful PreCure. Cure Nyammy and Cure Lillian are both part of the initial lineup, at least when it comes to visuals and promo images. But we don't know many details about their characters. They don't appear in the first ending, so it's clear that their debut is not going to be anytime soon. So today, some new merch listings have surfaced on the internet, so let's talk about them. First of all, we already know the episode titles until episode 5, and we know that in episode 5, Cure Wonderful and Cure Friendly are getting the friendly tact. So no Cure Nyammy and no Cure Lillian until episode 5 at least. Another thing that we have is this announcement right here that is going to happen on March 30. This is a live event in Japan, and this is an event that happens for every season. And so this is happening late March. Why am I showing it here? Because the poster for this event only shows Cure Wonderful and Cure Friendly. So it's obvious that we're not going to have Nyammy or Lillian in March either. How do we know that? Those events usually only show in the poster the characters that will appear in the event. So we're going to have Cure Wonderful and Cure Friendly in the event. And the events usually follow the TV show. So they only feature the characters that have already appeared in the TV show. Last year, it was the same thing for Hirogaru Sky PreCure. We knew that we knew the month of debut from Tsubasa, for example, because of the live shows, and the same thing for Butterfly because of the live shows. Butterfly was not featured until June in the posters, while Tsubasa was featured since he appeared in the show. So we knew that she was not going to debut in May, for example, because late May still didn't feature her in the posters for the events. Now let's move on to April. April has something interesting being released when it comes to merchandise, which is the Yuki plushie. This is the talking Yuki plush, and we already know, it's very clear that Yuki is actually Cure Nyammy, right? It is no secret to anyone that Yuki, this adorable cat, will transform into Cure Nyammy. This toy right here is getting released April 6th. So the release is not that far away. This can mean that this toy might showcase when Yuki will start talking in the show, maybe. So maybe early April can be a possible debut window for Cure Nyammy. I don't know. But there is another thing. Usually when a Cure debuts, we have this lineup of merchandise for each of them. So when we had the start of Wonderful PreCure, we had this lineup. We had one for Wonderful, we had one for Friendly. So we usually have the Cure appearing and her merch also being released. We have the PreCore, which is this small doll. We have the Style doll, which is a bigger doll. We have the plushie, and we have her costume. Obviously, we have some differences. For example, Cure Wing was a big exception, so I'm not going to use Cure Wing as an example here because I believe he was an exception because he was the first boy Cure and his merchandise was only released with Butterfly. He debuted in April, but his merchandise was only released in June. And so it's the same for Friendly. So we're probably going to have this bulk of merchandise for both Nyammy and Lillian when they arrive in the show. We have some exceptions, for example, when not exactly Cure Wing, but a smaller exception like Friendly. Friendly's merch was released at the start of Wonderful PreCure and she only appeared in episode 2. This usually happens with the initial lineup whenever they appear in 2, 3, or 4. I don't know. We usually have their merchandise being released together with the first PreCure merch, which is Cure Wonderful in this case. So now let's talk about the new stuff that we have. We have this listing here that shows Cure Lillian and Cure Nyammy, both of them with some of the merchandise, which is the Style doll, which is the plushie, which is this one. We have PreCure, the PreCure Day. So the same merchandise that we have, where is it? Where is it? Here. The same merch that we have here for Wonderful and here for Friendly are going to be released in May 30 for Nyammy and for Lillian. Another thing that we have for when it comes to merchandise is another listing, which is the plushies. We are going to have plushies for Mayu, for Yuki, for Satoru, and for Daifuku. All 4 of them being released May 30 as well. And we're gonna have one for Komugi and one for Iroha, also releasing on May 30. We also have another detail here for Wonderful PreCure, which is a Pat Beauty Salon kit, which is also May 30. And last, we also have an All Stars Henshin accessory packaging, which is May 31st. Okay, so let's double down on this a little bit. First off, usually when we have the merchandise being announced like this a little early in advance, sometimes they put the last day of the month as reference, but that does not mean that it's getting released on the last day of the month. That just means that it's getting released in the window of that month because we don't have the exact date yet. So this can be a placeholder date for Nyammy and Lillian merchandise, and we might get it earlier than May 30. But what they usually do is add the last day of the month. And here is not the last day, it's May 30, not 31st. So I believe this is not a placeholder date because we also have another merchandise being released on the 31st. But I might be wrong, and this might be a placeholder, and they arrive in a different date in May. So my belief right now is that it's actually getting released late May for a June debut, like Cure Butterfly did. So we are getting Cure Nyammy and Cure Lillian in June, in the first few episodes of June. So we have this merchandise being released here in the week that they debut, but they only debut in the weekend, for example. But there's another thing that makes me think, that makes me wonder. Usually, this type of merchandise is released on Saturdays. So if they don't release it on Saturdays, it is going to be a different vibe for the release of this merch. This is another proof that this can be a placeholder date only, and this might not reflect the actual date that is getting released. But if we usually, when we have placeholder dates, we have the month correct. So it's definitely May. This merchandise is definitely coming in May. Right now, my belief, as I said, my belief is that we're getting both Cure Nyammy and Cure Lillian around the same time as we got Cure Butterfly in Hirogaru Sky PreCure, which was episode 18. Cure Nyammy and Cure Lillian are not featured in the first ending, so maybe when the second ending starts, they will be there. They will be featured in the second ending. We don't know. It's just a theory, as I said, but this is possible. This is a possibility. This is something that can happen as well, and this is what I believe right now. And so another thing that I want to say is this profile right here on Instagram, as 2021-0313. This profile usually shares new releases of merchandise from different franchises, and they're always very ahead when it comes to them. And this profile, very important to say, usually they don't list their sources, but they are correct. They do not make things up. They do not share fake news. So the things that they share are usually right. Okay, so looking at everything that we saw here, it's a very big possibility that Cure Nyammy and Cure Lillian are joining us late May or early June. I believe that early June is a possibility. If we look at the calendar, June, our first episode in June is June 2nd, which is a Sunday. And if we have the merch getting released May 30, it is a very close date to a possible debut for Nyammy or for Lillian. I don't know. Or for both of them in the same episode. Who knows? And usually for us, or at least for me, who is in the American continent, the episodes air on Saturdays, which is going to be June 1st. So maybe the episode that will air in June 1st will bring us Cure Nyammy and Cure Lillian. But obviously, this is all a possibility. I feel like it is very unlikely that we get them in April following the Talking Yuki release, because usually the debuts come with more merchandise than just this toy. So the big bulks of merchandise, they are spread away from each other. We had one in February. I think April is a very close date for us to have this amount of merchandise. And there's also another thing that I forgot to mention. Cure Nyammy and Cure Lillian are probably getting their own transformation device and maybe their own weapon as well. So we might have a listing in the future, another listing with those merch, and I feel like these can make it even clearer for us. Because if we look at the Wonderful Pact, they only have Cure Wonderful and Cure Friendly's colors, and people that have the pact have already said that they only feature Cure Wonderful and Cure Friendly when it comes to the transformation. So definitely they're going to use a different one. It might be a pact, very similar, but it's going to be a different pact, maybe with only different colors. Who knows? But it's not going to be the exact same toy. Ooh, girl, I love theorizing like this. How are your expectations? What are you wishing for when it comes to Cure Nyammy and Cure Lillian? I am not gonna lie, I would love for them to debut in June, early June, because it's very close to my birthday, so I always feel like it is a birthday present, kind of like Butterfly was last year to me. So I would love if they debuted early June. What about you? Anyways, babies, this is it for now. I want to take this little time to thank the members of the Magical Cinema channel. If you're a member, thank you very, very much for your support. And if you've watched up until now, thank you so much as well. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye bye.